Have you ever noticed that when people talk about the greatest empires in history, they usually mention Rome, Greece, Persia, or China? But there's one empire that almost nobody talks about, right? Even though it controls some of the most important trade routes in the ancient world. An empire so wealthy that foreign civilizations wrote about it, right? An empire that minted its own gold coins. An empire that traded with Rome, India, Arabia, and beyond, right? An empire that helped shape world history, yet somehow disappeared from most history books. Today we're talking about the Aksumite Empire. And trust me, this story deserves way more attention than it gets. Before we get into how powerful Aksum became, let's first understand where it was. The Aksumite Empire was centered in what is now modern-day Ethiopia and Eritrea, right along with one of the busiest trade corridors on Earth. If you wanted goods moved between Africa, the Middle East, India, and the Mediterranean, there was a good chance they passed through Aksum. Think about today's world. Countries fight over shipping lanes, right? Companies spend billions making sure product reach customers as quickly as possible. Well over 1,700 years ago, Aksum had already figured that out. Location was everything. Instead of trying to conquer the entire world, Aksum controlled something almost as valuable. The roads and ports that connected it trade that Aksum incredibly rich, or made Aksum incredibly rich, right? Merchants arrived carrying silk from Asia, spices from India, glass from the Roman world, fine textiles, jewelry, wine, olive oil. In return, Aksum exported products that other civilizations desperately wanted. Ivory, gold, precious stones, iron, animal products, and agriculture goods. Ships constantly traveled across the Red Sea carrying cargo in every direction. This wasn't some isolated African kingdom. This was an international trading superpower. Imagine walking through the markets of Aksum. You hear different languages, right? See merchants from different lands. Meet travelers who had crossed deserts and oceans just to do business. The city was alive with opportunity. Its wealth became so well known that even the Romans recognized Aksum's importance. Ancient writers described it as one of the great powers of their time. In fact, a Persian writer centuries later grouped Aksum among the major kingdoms of the world. Think about that. While many people today have never heard of Aksum, the ancient world absolutely knew who they were. One of the biggest signs of Aksum's success was its money. The empire produced its own gold, silver, and bronze coins. That might not sound impressive today, but in the ancient world, creating your own currency meant something, right? It showed economic strength, political stability, and international trust. Foreign merchants accepted Aksumite coins because they believed in the empire's economy. That's a huge achievement. Many neighboring kingdoms never reached that level. But Aksum wasn't only about money. Its rulers invested in incredible architecture. If you've ever seen pictures of the massive stone monuments standing in Ethiopia, those are called stelae. Some weigh hundreds of tons. Some stand taller than modern buildings. What's amazing is that they were carved from single pieces of stone. No modern cranes, no heavy machinery. Yet somehow, ancient engineers moved and raised these enormous monuments, right? Even today, historians continue to study exactly how they accomplished it. The craftsmanship is remarkable. Aksum also became one of the earliest kingdoms to officially adopt Christianity. This happened during the reign of Azana of Aksum in the 4th century. That decision changed the empire forever. Churches were built, religious art flourished, new traditions developed that continue in parts of Ethiopia today. It's one reason Ethiopia has one of the oldest continuous Christian traditions anywhere in the world. Long before many parts of Europe embraced Christianity, Aksum already had. That's a part of history many people never learn, right? Of course, no empire stays powerful forever, right? As trade routes change, problems begin. New powers emerge. Political struggles increase. And environmental pressures may also have affected agriculture in some regions. As commerce shifted toward other routes and ports, Aksum gradually lost much of that advantage that had made it wealthy, right? Its influence slowly declined. That was the reason, right? Not because it suddenly collapsed overnight, but because the world around it changed, right? History teaches us that even the strongest economies depend on staying connected to global trade. So why don't we hear about Aksum as often as Rome, right? Part of the answer is simple. Many school systems spend much time covering European history than African history. Another reason is the fewer written records from Aksum survive compared to some of the other ancient civilizations. But archaeology continues to reveal more every year. Researchers are uncovering buildings, coins, inscriptions, artifacts. Each discovery gives us a clear picture of just how advanced this civilization really was. One thing I find fascinating is that Aksum completely changes the stereotype that ancient Africa was isolated from the rest of the world. It wasn't. Africa was deeply connected to international trade. Ideas crossed continents, right? Goods crossed oceans, right? People exchanged technology, language, religion, and culture. Aksum stood right in the middle of that global network. It wasn't watching history happen. It was helping shape it. The story of Aksum reminds us that history is much bigger than the handful of civilizations we usually hear about. There were thriving kingdoms across Africa that built wealth, innovation, and influence on a global scale. Their stories deserve to be remembered, not because they're replacing anyone else's history, but because they're part of humanity's shared history. The Aksumite Empire wasn't forgotten because it lacked importance. It was forgotten because history isn't always told equally. Fortunately, that's beginning to change, right? And the more we learn about civilizations like Aksum, the more complete our understanding of the ancient world becomes. Make sure you like and subscribe, man. I got more videos coming your way. Stay curious.